Um, if the Lord would use me, Holy Spirit, if you would use me in the way that I've been praying, then I believe that something would be said that I think I probably need to go back to and listen again, because I understand what the message is. It's just something that is not that easy, even though I get it with my mind. But I believe that the Lord wanted me to talk about option B. Option B. Um, what I'm about to say, it does not apply to many different types of relationships. It doesn't apply to if you have a shallow or superficial relationship, but it also doesn't even apply even if you have someone that you are very, very close to, or people that you consider to be very, very good friends, or family members that you are tight with. It's not necessarily applicable even to those kinds of relationships. Somebody that you might even consider to be your very, very best friend in the world. But what I'm about to talk about is applicable to when you have a relationship that I would call a yoked relationship. When you have a relationship with someone where it is necessary for you to walk together, for you to have some set of common goals and common purpose, and you have to, at least to a certain degree, be able to get on the same wavelength so that you can do what it is you need to do together. Okay? When you think about a yoke on a pair of oxen, where it's this physical device that's on both of their necks, and if ox number one wants to go this way, there is no way it can ever go that way unless ox number two is with it, and vice versa. If ox number two wants to go that way, it'll never be over there unless ox number one is also over there, right? So you have to have a certain degree of commonality in how you're thinking about things and how you're processing things and whatnot. A couple of examples of that type of relationship would be obviously the marriage relationship, right? Where you have a certain set of common goals or common purpose. And even if you don't agree on every last single thing under the sun, but when you have the big things going on in your life, even if initially you might see some certain things differently, you still need to have the capacity to say, we can work this out and come to this place where we end up having a common view of what's going on and how we're going to handle it, how we're going to attack it. So it requires a certain degree of agreement and a certain degree of being able to walk in lockstep when it's necessary. Another example would be business partners, right? Where we are in this business together and our goal is for this business to be successful or to go to this place. So we need to be in agreement on where we want the business to go, what we want to accomplish, what is the business trying to get done. We have to have some level of agreement, right, on how this is going to work, because we are business partners. Another example would be at your place of employment, and the boss says, I want you two to work together on this project. I want y'all to come together to solve this problem. So y'all need to create some type of yoked relationship where y'all are both trying to deal with the same issue and come, bring things to the same place. In those types of relationships, it's really, really frustrating and extremely difficult. And I know most of us have experienced this when you are in some type of yoked relationship, when the person that you're yoked with thinks and processes things entirely different from the way that you do. I mean, the way that you think and the way that you process stuff and the way that you handle stuff is just completely divergent in terms of how you operate. And it's not even situations where that other person wants to be, they're trying to just be contrary to you, right? They're just waiting for you to say yes so they can say no. They're waiting for you to say up so they can say down, but it's just, they're not trying to do that. It's just literally how they think and how they process and what they see when they look at a situation is just almost always different from you and the way you see it and what you're getting from the situation. Not only that, but it's even more frustrating when you're yoked together with a person and when you process things, it's like you're thinking, oh yeah, now that I thought about that, we need to go over. And they were like literally like, no, we need to go under that. And you're like, okay, next thing we need to go around to the left. They're like, no, don't you see, we need to go around to the right. And then sometimes it can go to another level because you look at something and they can be totally freaked out about it and say, don't you see this problem? And so not only is it that when you see a problem, your thought process on how to deal with that problem is so different, but sometimes you see a problem and they don't even see a problem. Or sometimes you see a problem, don't you see, like this is a big, hairy deal. And they're like, what? So not only are you not in agreement on how to deal with an issue, sometimes you don't even agree with what an issue is, right? Now, this is when it takes it to another level of frustration. When you're in a yoked relationship and the person that you're yoked with, for whatever reason, you are subordinate to them. They are within the context of your relationship. They're in charge, or they have a little bit of the upper hand. So that when you, and I'm not saying that you got to agree with everybody on everything all the time. I'm talking about relationships where you have to be in agreement, and on the big stuff, you just can't see it the same way, right? But now you're in this relationship, and the other person, if you do disagree, you got to do it their way. You got to, the boss said, I want y'all to work together on this, but he's the big boss, but it's you and this other person, but they have seniority over you on some level. So when y'all start butting heads, not only do you not, come together on it, but then you end up having to be in a situation where you went the way that they want to go because they're over you, right? So this can be a frustrating situation. If I was just imagining, and I was just praying about this, and I was outside riding my bike, and this thought came to my mind, and I felt like the Lord was showing me, like it was me and Tiff, and a young couple was coming to us for some advice, and they were thinking about getting married. And I was thinking to myself, there's some common things that I would say to both of them, that Tiff and I would say is just, even though whether you're male or female, is just, you should know this, before you get married to somebody. But then there would be some more specific things that I would say to a young man that would be different from what I think should be said to a young woman. And so in my mind, I was just imagining it's the young woman's turn, and she's coming, and she's going to come and meet with me and Tiff. We're going to advise her on some stuff. And if she said to us, I'm thinking about marrying this guy, but the way he thinks, like his thought processing, is just so different from mine. And, it's fine when it's little stuff, but it's like the big stuff of life. We don't agree like on anything. And, we have all these scenarios that we imagine coming up and all these questions that we're going through. It's like, what would you do if this happened? Or what would you do if this came into your life? And then we write down our answers, and she's telling me and Tiff, like, I would do this. And his answer is either completely divergent from mine, or in some cases, it's like just diametrically opposed to what I would say and what I think should be done. But I really love him, and he loves me. I think what I would say to her is, I would say, if it's the really big stuff, I mean, huge questions of life and what you think is best and good and right, and y'all just disagree all the time and just completely disagree on the big stuff, I would say I would give you two options. I think that you should either take, this is what I would tell her, you should take either option A or option B. I would strongly advise her to not try to create some type of hybrid. Don't try to do something in between one of these options. I would beg her, I would say, please don't. Just either do option A or do option B. Don't try to mix them. I would tell her, I would say, the way it sounds, 99% of the time in your situation, what you're telling me about you and this brother and the way that y'all, not connecting, 99% of the time, I would probably recommend that you go with option A. I'm going to tell you what option A is. And then that little 1% of the time, you might want to consider option B, but you probably want to go with option A. I would tell her option A is give his ring back. You're not already married to him, okay? And see, because you're you're a young Christian woman and you want to have a godly marriage. So since you want to have a godly marriage, then you're going to want to understand that your husband he's not your taskmaster. He's not your master. He's not. But in the godly hierarchy, you do have to understand that God has set him up as the head over your family, and he has set him up as your covering, right? And the leader within the context of your marriage and your family. So you have to go in understanding that. And so since you understand that, you have an opportunity now, before you say I do, to find a brother that when you give him your hand, you know that since he's going to kind of have that little bit of ranking, the way God has set things up, you want to be able to have somebody that when they say, when this big situation comes, let's do this, and it's something that you feel like you're going to be able to get with, right? Because I don't want you to put yourself in a position, this is what I would say to the young lady, I don't want you to put yourself in a position where you're going to end up feeling rebellious. I don't want to put you in a position where you're going to be frustrated for the rest of your life. I don't want to put you in a position where you're going to be frustrating the man for the rest of his life. Okay? So what I would probably think you should do, I know you love him. You say he loves you, but it's a whole lot of fish in the sea. Right? This is what I would tell her. I would say, go back. It's probably going to be some crying. He's not going to be able to understand why. But I would tell you, just take that off and say, I don't think this is going to work. But there's that 1% chance that this might be an option B worthy brother. Okay? Just sometimes you run into a guy that in your heart of hearts, just something deep down inside of you, and all the other people that know this guy will also attest to it and say there's something about his character that is so impeccable. There's something about him that is so excellent and above the bar, above par, to such that everybody who knows him would agree and say that in all of your lifetime, and you only get one, So that's why I'm trying to help you make a good decision here. You only get one. So I'm pointing it to man once to die, and then the judgment. But even if you had 10 more lifetimes, if you could live to be 90 and then you could do it 10 more times, you get 900 total years. You know, and everybody would tell you, you would never find another brother like this. He's just special. And I know it's like you don't think the same, you don't process the same, you don't see it the same, but he might be an option B brother. So I'm going to help you determine whether or not he's option B worthy. He might be option B. This is what option B is, though. Let me tell you what option B is. Option B is you go ahead and you marry this brother. But because you don't think anything alike and you don't process things any way that has any similarity to it, because of that, and because you're going to be with him, you have to do two things on option B. Option A, just drop it. Option B is you marry him and you trust him 100%. And you take no offense. When he does stuff that makes no sense to you and it makes you feel like, you just gotta let it go. That's an option B, brother. But it's so few of them. It's so few of them. It's so few of them. This guy probably not option B. He might not be worth option B. But I'm going to take you through some criteria to see if maybe he might be option B. It's two questions I'm going to ask you, and then there's a third question that I may or may not be helpful. But the first two questions are always helpful. The third question might be helpful. The first question to have this criteria is this. He might be an option B brother if he would die for you. But I'm not talking about him dying for you in the context of your innocence. It's a lot of people who would die for you in the context of your innocence. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of brave people in the world who, if we're walking through Harris Teeter and somebody jumps out, some crazy man jumps out with a gun and points it at your head, it's a lot of people that kind of have that mindset. They might be willing to risk their life and jump in front or try to grab him or try to do something knowing that they might die. But the context is that they don't even know you. And as far as they're concerned, you're innocent. You don't deserve to get shot in the head today. So in the context of your innocence, I might be willing to take a bullet for you because you don't deserve a bullet. But in the context of your sin, in the context of your guilt, what if, this is hypothetical. This is what I would say to the young lady. This is hypothetical. What if over the course of your entire life, every last sin you had committed, every last little thing that you did, big and small, had this little penalty price tag on it, right? And it was just piling up. And then one day, somebody showed up at your house and said, oh, we've been keeping track of all your sin. And it has reached a point where it has piled up to this place where it's added up to it's the death penalty now. It's just so many things stacked up one on top of the other. So we need to take you out. We're going to put you out in this field. We're going to line you up. And we're going to have our boys. Pow. Or we're going to put you in the electric chair. Or we're going to put you on the lethal injection table. And you deserve this. It's the accumulation of all the things that you've done. I want to know, would this brother die for you in the context of your sin? Would he say, no? Is it possible that even though she deserves this, I'll get in the electric chair for her? Even though she deserves this, I will get on the lethal injection table for her. Even though she deserves this, I'll take the bullet for her. That's different than dying for you in the context of your innocence. Would he die for you in the context of your sin? That's question number one. Question number two. All this time that you've been with him, and you're always disagreeing and you're always thinking totally opposite. Even though sometimes it takes weeks before you find out, sometimes it takes months before you find out, sometimes it takes many years before you find out. But all those times you disagreed, and now you look back years later over all the things that he said should be done, was he right most of the time? That's question 2. Would he die for you in the context of your guilt? And has he usually been right when you disagree? Because he might be an option B, brother, that you could just say, because I know he loves me to that degree, and because he's usually right, even when we disagree, looking back on it, he might be somebody that I can just say, even when we disagree, I just trust him. Even when we disagree and he frustrates me, I don't take offense. I just let it go. Because he's option B kind of guy. But here's the third thing. This question may or may not help you. What I want to know is, if you tell me his name, I might know him. And then we can just cut to the chase. Because if I know him already, I can just tell you whether he's option B or not. Right? So what's his name? Jesus. You talking about, the one raised by Mary and Joseph. His daddy, Yahweh. I know him. I know him. He's straight up option B. Straight up option B. You can roll with him. The thing is, though, if you're going to yoke yourself to him, you're going to be with him. I guarantee you he's going to frustrate you. Because what I know about him is so often his thoughts are not like your thoughts. And his ways are not like your ways. He's going to frustrate the snot out of you. The only way you can really have a good relationship with him, you got to go option B.
Yeah, I love it.
You have to just trust him 100%. And when he does things that offend your senses, you got to let it go. He's option B. I know if you would have just told me who he was, what he was talking about. I want us to read from Luke chapter 7. If somebody could read for me Luke chapter 7, and somebody read verses 19 through 23. Thank you, son.
He sent them to the Lord to ask, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" When the men came to Jesus, they said, "John the Baptist sent us to you to ask, 'Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?'" At that very time, Jesus cured many who had diseases, sicknesses, and evil spirits, and gave sight to many who were blind. So he replied to the messengers, "Go back and report to John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me."
My Bible says in verse 23, "Blessed is he who is not offended by me." Luke chapter 7 is one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, and I always have to go back to it in situations and dealing with things like I was thinking about and dealing with last week. And seeing Sister Tay at Miss Missy's dance studio, and telling me some things that were going on with people, and it just made my heart heavy. And it just made me have to come back to Luke 7. I think Luke 7 to me is so interesting because it starts off with 2 miracles that Jesus did. Before it gets to the part that Josh just read, it's 2 miracles that took place. The first miracle was the centurion's servant, where it was a Roman centurion who his servant was sick, and he's like, you know, this guy is important to me, and I've heard about Jesus, and I just want to know if he'll help. And the people came and they said, Jesus, this guy, he's a really good guy. He's not a Jew like us. He's a Roman centurion. He's a Roman soldier, but he's a really good brother. He has helped us. And so I'm guessing, he said, you know, he's helped us with the temple. So probably as they were working on the temple, he might have been somebody that instead of harassing them was like, y'all take care of y'all business. I'm gonna make sure, you know, that y'all good. I'm gonna keep people off y'all back while y'all working on the temple, because he was not a Jewish man. They said, but for whatever reason, he's a good guy. So we're wondering if you'll go and help him. And Jesus said, I got him. And when he was on his way to go and help the guy, y'all know the story. The Roman centurion said, tell him stop. He don't have to come to my house. I know how authority works. All he has to do is just say whatever it is he needs to say, and I know my servant will be fine. And Jesus said, I haven't seen faith like that in all of Israel. And so Jesus just spoke the word, and the servant was healed, right? This is a Roman guy. He's not a Jew. And in the earthly sense of speaking, he didn't even know him, right? Right after that, he's coming through a small town called Nain, N-A-I-N, Nain. And this woman's son died, right? He's in the middle of the funeral procession. So he'd been dead for a while. They got him up on a thing, you know, where you had the pallbearers. And in those days, he was not in a coffin at that time, but his body would be, in the open. And they're taking him through the streets. And the Bible says that Jesus saw the young man's mama, and it literally says right here, it says his heart went out to her. Like he was moved. In an earthly sense, he didn't know her. As God, he did, but just Jesus, his heart went out to her. I feel bad for this woman. I'm going to raise her son up. So he raised the boy up. John's disciples, this is where Josh picked it up, went and reported to John what they saw Jesus just do. Have you ever thought about like how weird it was, like John's response? Like, are you really the Christ? Because to me, it's like he just did 2 very Messiah-ish things. Yep. And so why are you questioning his Messiahship when you just got reported to you that he just did 2 things that are very much like what a powerful Messiah would do? It's almost like if our football team has just been sorry, like for like years. We just had the sorriest football team in the world. And we've been praying, Lord, would you please finally give us a good quarterback? Please give us a good quarterback. We need a good quarterback. Our team stinks. And then somebody comes and reports to you and say, our quarterback just threw for 588 yards, 8 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And then he ran for another 2 touchdowns with another 200 yards. And then you send word back to the quarterback saying, are you really the quarterback that we've been waiting for? Well, anyway, that was good football stuff. Oh, we've been waiting for somebody to play basketball. Our basketball team is soft. Oh, we just got a new captain of the basketball team. He just scored 48 points and had 18 steals and 10 assists. And you're like, are you really the one we like? What are you talking about?
What's wrong with you?
John is saying, go and ask him, are you really the one? Yeah. After they just reported to him what he had done. The issue was, I think I talked to y'all about this before. The problem is that John is in prison. And John is in prison for doing what he was called to be doing. He's not just in prison, but he is in a dungeon underneath Herod's castle. And another problem is the way they designed the dungeon underneath Herod's castle. When you look at the archaeology and see how they excavated all this stuff, the dungeon is only about this high. So when you are down in the dungeon, you can't even stand straight up. They make you have to bend over. They wanted you to be in a state of ill condition. So if they have to move you from one place to another, when they pull you out of there, they want you to be weak. If you're able to stand up and keep your strength. So if you all benched over and hunched over and you can't do nothing, by the time they pull you out, you're weak and they want to take you to the guillotine and chop your head off. They ain't got to worry about you trying to run away. They got you in a weakened state. Got a shackle around his ankle. He's chained to the wall. His excrement is in the corner. He's in a bad place. So he got this tiny little window, probably about this big when you look at the excavations. And that's when his disciples are looking through there and saying, hey, John, guess what we just saw Jesus doing for everybody else? Why you sitting in here? Can't get out, about to get your head chopped off. And his heart is going out to her, and he's helping centurion's servants. I'm not saying that they were trying to get him all right, but I'm saying how he's like,
Yeah. What
okay, wait. So I'm in a bad spot, and I'm your boy, right? Because how can he not know who he is? Not only from the basketball statistics that just came back and the football statistics that just came back, all the Messiah stuff that Jesus just got done doing. You know that he's Messiah just from that. But on top of that, you're the one that when you were still a baby inside your mama, you was the one leaping just because he was in your presence because you knew who he was then.
Yeah.
You know who he is because you're the one that baptized him and you saw the dove come out from heaven. And you heard the voice of the Father say, this is my beloved Son with whom I'm well pleased. You know who he is. How could you be asking, are you really? It's because you're in a place that's got you feeling a little bit salty. You're in a bad spot. And in your mind, in the way that you think, you're thinking you got all this power. Oh, and I forgot, that's my cousin. That's my cousin. You got all this power. How often do we think when we're trying to be married to this option B guy, if I had all your power, this is what I would do. If I was in control of this situation and I could change something like this, I know I wouldn't let you be in prison. I mean, if this was switched around, I'll hook you up.
Mm-hmm.
You think so differently than I do. You just letting me sit in here, waiting for my head to get chopped off. And Jesus said, this is what I thought was a trip. Y'all might not notice how much of a trip this was. Jesus is a trip. When the disciples came back, he explicitly put on an hour-long show of miracles. Just for them. He said, what? Look, John wants to know if I'm really him. After the report you just gave him of what I just was doing. Okay, let me show you something. It said right there in that very hour when they came back to report to them, in that hour, he started healing people, cleansing lepers, opening blind eyes. He just put on like a little show for them. Just an hour-long show. And then he said, okay, go and tell John what you just saw. That the deaf hear, the blind see, the lepers are cleansed. Go back and tell him what I just did, but also remind him that blessed are those who just trust me completely and don't get offended by me.
Yep.
Remind him of that. What I never liked about this story, what I never liked about it is you got to show up sometime, no? Right? You got to do something. Even if you're letting him like sweat for a while. You got to, no. I never liked this story because they ended up taking John out. They put him on the guillotine. It came down and they served his head up on a platter. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Yeah. But there's another passage of scripture I want us to look at. And it's in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. It's verses 16, 17, and 18. Somebody want to read that for me?
I have it again.
I got my reader.
Yeah,
Verses 16 through 18.
I have it.
Okay.
Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal.
All right. This is what's hard about serving the Lord. And this is what's hard about being with an option B person. Even if we disagree, you have to step in at some point before it gets too bad. You got to step in at some point before certain things happen. Okay? You can't just, this is the way we think. You can't just let me get my head chopped off. I understand the part about you might let me sit in prison. You might let me go through some hard stuff. But you're not going to let me get my head chopped off, right? You let me go through some hard stuff, but we were watching this Christian movie a while back, and there was a scene that really disturbed me and made me feel upset when I was watching it, because it was a Christian family and young woman went to a 4th of July thing with her friends, and some dude snatched her into the bathroom and locked the door. And then you knew what happened from there. And it was a true story. And it made me upset because as a Christian, I want to say it's certain it's certain things you just can't let happen. That's too much. So you can let me sit in this prison and I can be tied with this chain and I can be in a bad spot, but you better come get me before they actually just chop my head off. You got to do something before that happens. I can go through a hard time, but don't let this man put his hands on me in that way where I have to deal with that for the rest of my life. You don't let me. I can go through all this, but don't let my baby die. Don't let when I'm praying for my family member and they only in their 30s and cancer is about to take them. We can go through all these trials and tribulations, but don't let it reach a point where the head gets chopped off. But a plan B guy, they might let your head get chopped off. And your mind is going, nah, can't reconcile that. Can't get with that. And the plan B guy is saying, I know you can't. You told me that I was an option B person. You told me that you just trust me 100%. You told me that if you're going to be with me, you would just release all offense. So I take you to places and I do things and I let things happen that really push you to your limit, don't they? And you want to say, I changed my mind. You get ready, you want to take this ring off. I don't know why I put plan B with you. You crazy.
You're crazy.
I know it's like we get to a point where, we don't agree on stuff. That's what I was with. But you, how is, no, wait. I'm sitting up in the house. And I know you're supposed to be a plan B kind of man. And somebody breaks open the front door and they start just walking through the house stealing stuff. What you gonna do, plan B? And you just sitting there just watching everybody ransack the house. No! No. And plan B is saying, you told me you trust me 100%. That you take no offense. When I'm not making a bit of sense to you. The problem is in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And I'm going to try to be finished. Josh just read it for me. It said, we don't lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, the inward man is being renewed day by day. Sometimes we don't feel like that at all. But Mr. Plan B says that's the case. So I just receive it. And then he says, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment. He classifies light affliction not based upon how we think of light affliction. He classifies light affliction as being light affliction because it's temporary. It's not the magnitude of how it makes us feel emotionally. That's not what makes it heavy or light. He says it's light because it doesn't last forever. So when that man did this to my child, you telling me that's light? When I lost my brother to this disease, you telling me that's light? What you talking about? Plan B? Plan Bs are crazy. That's why you got to exercise Plan B in order to be with them. You can't handle being with Plan B people unless you really execute Plan B. He says in verse 18, this is what will help you. The reason why we have such a disconnect in the way we think, and the reason why I frustrate you so much, is because I'm eternally minded and you're temporally minded. That's good right there. I frustrate you because you cannot see a big enough picture of what's going on the way I see the picture of what's going on at any given moment in time, and you're stuck in this little space, and that's why I never make sense to you, because what's going on will never make sense only inside of that much space. If you start learning how to just increase your space, just keep stretching it. In the meantime, while it's still small and you can't understand it all, you got to keep doing the Plan B stuff. You got to keep saying, I just trust. You got to keep saying, I take no offense. I just trust. I take no offense. You got to keep doing that. But it becomes less frustrating when you start being able to see a little bit bigger of a picture of what that person is seeing. That's what we got to learn how to do. I'm about to be finished. I'm just remembering when my friend Rodney played football with him freshman year. Absolutely true story. We had some crazy dudes on the team. I mean, just crazy. But Rodney was a cool dude. He's a good football player. But the team that we were playing against was purposely, it was a few guys that were like purposely saying stuff to try to like get under our skin and just like saying crazy stuff and talking about our mamas and calling us stuff. And so for whatever reason, Rodney just kind of snapped. Somebody got like pushed Rodney's button, right? And Rodney was a cool guy. Rodney said, spit in this dude's face, right through his face, man. Start cussing the boy. Officials saw. Yellow flag. 15-yard penalty. Problem was, okay, it took the 15-yard penalty. Rodney might have been fine. Problem was Coach Davis saw. Coach Davis, that's bad if Coach Davis is mad. Coach Davis came out there. Big man. Super strong dude. He grabbed Rodney by the back of his shoulder pads. And you could see, it wasn't like a minute, but it was like a good 3-4 seconds. Rodney's leg was just dangling in the air. Coach Davis had him by the back of the shoulder pad. He said, what's wrong with you, boy? Took him, dragged him off the field, sat him down on the bench. And Rodney was not allowed to come back into the game. He was out. Now, within the confines of the field, football field is 120 yards long. It's 50 yards wide. We still on the field. We still got to play. Rodney off the field, right? We miss Rodney. Rodney could play. He was good. Like, man, I wish Rodney was here. Wish Rodney was here. Wish Rodney was here. He was no longer in the field to play. But if I expand my vision just a little bit, I look over and I'm like, Randy's still over there. He out the game. He can't play anymore. But as far as Coach Davis was concerned, he was done. Your game is over. Don't need you on the field no more. He didn't cease to exist. When I expanded my view and looked outside the field, I could still see Rodney over there. He cool. He be all right. Sometimes people leave the field. Sometimes people are not on the field to play anymore. And we're like, oh, it's the end of the world. Or Coach Davis might say, Broom, this particular game, you're just as fast as Tony DePaulo. You're just as strong as Tony DePaulo. But in this particular game, Tony DePaulo is about this wide. And the way that particular defensive player plays, he can get around you too fast. This time I want Tony to play. You get off the field. And I'm like, I don't get it. If he didn't explain to me and I couldn't see, he just said, Broom, get off the field. And I'm like, what's going on? I can't play. I'm off the field. Like, to me, like, that's the end of the world. It's not like I don't exist. But if I learn to understand what the coach is seeing, like, oh, I see how this guy plays. In this game, Tony is better. It is better for Tony to be on the field and I'm not on the field. I'm starting to get it. By default, coach is plan B. Because if I don't quit the team, if I don't understand what he's doing, then I got to roll with it. I can't be offended by it. I got to trust him. He's the coach. But if I start understanding where he's coming from, it can reduce the frustration, right? With our Lord and Savior, I just want to say, and I ended up cutting this thing up by mistake, so I don't want to talk to Lauren on the phone with the rest. We got to trust him, y'all. And all these things that are going on personally in our families, and even in the grand scope of like all the stuff that's happening in the world that we were talking about at the beginning, we got to trust him. And one thing I think people forget, and I was telling Tip this the other day, is this whole battle is spiritual. And all these spiritual entities that are trying to do all these things in the earth, they are smart enough to know, actually. It's just the people that they're using don't realize. Like, sometimes people are too. It's some people that have no idea what they're caught up into. Like, they don't even know the devil is behind any of this. Yep. There are some people who are into this stuff and they know exactly what Satan is doing, and they're working in cahoots with him, somehow deceived, thinking that he's going to ultimately have some type of victory, and they're deceived, right? But they're stupid. Because even the demons know that this God, who sometimes seems so dormant for so long, and everybody ransacking the house, even if he's letting everybody just ransack the house, and you're thinking, why don't you do something? And he's not doing anything because he's plan B. And it's like, you don't make sense to me, plan B, people. But you're trying to say, trust. I'm going to take no offense. Everybody ransacking the house. Everything going crazy. Would you please do something? No? Okay, I'm going to trust you. Would you please hurt him? Because he's crazy. He's trying to destroy us. Would you please stop that man doing that evil thing? No, you're not going to stop him. Okay. Let me calm down. But what you have no idea of is that whether he's doing something or not, this is what people forget. He's dangerous.
Yep. Extremely.
Whenever he does get up, if he's sitting at the top of the steps, and people just stealing stuff, breaking stuff up, and just messing up the house, doing whatever they want. And we're like, would you please do something? But whenever, I don't know if y'all had them kind of mamas or daddies that's like, wait a while. But after a while, It's like they ain't gonna do nothing. But as soon as I first step and the reach for right here, and you see this start happening, it's like it's
Yeah.
It's
over.
It's already
Going
done.
down.
Yeah, it's already done.
Already done.
It happened in the realm already.
Already done.
That's why the demonic forces are working through people, and they're trying to get people to get close to God, to defy Him, and to try to do what they want done, while they're like, we would save all our stuff for another day. We know it's gonna be like this big showdown and whatever's gonna happen with that. But right now, they're trying to push people into danger while they're trying to stay back. Problem is, we say, okay, is it the beginning of the end? Perhaps. All I'm saying is, if it is, it is. But because of the God we serve, it don't have to be. Because just like Nebuchadnezzar, that dude ruled the world. And when Mr. Plan B said, I'm gonna have you down eating grass like an ox.
Yeah.
Fingernails and toenails all curled up. Hair looking all crazy like feathers. And then by the time he got done with him, he's like, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, right.
You're the man. You Mr. Plan B. And I told my wife, I said, he does it one or two ways. And I'm done talking. He said he could do it like he did with him. It was a very merciful way. I'm going to humble you. You think you all that. I'm going to humbly, in a way it's just, you know. And he's like, I know, I got you. Or he can do it like he did Herod, when Herod was up there giving that speech. I'm like a God. Everybody worshiping me. And for whatever reason, God decided not to humble him in a kinder way. Instead, he caused him to be eaten from the inside out by worms. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if it's going to be humble style or if it's going to be jack you up style. He got different styles. But he's dangerous. He's dangerous. Don't forget that. So I just wanted us to be encouraged to trust him. Remember that we yoked ourselves up to a plan B, an option B worthy God. And when he's not making sense, just trust you 100%. No offense. People getting their head chopped off. You got it. It's good. I trust you. My head about to get chopped off. He supposed to let my hair get chopped off. He might. But he's plan B worthy. He's option B worthy. So Lord, we just want to say that we want to trust you like that. The reason why I said I wanted to record this, I didn't mean for it, because I said I have to come back and listen to this again. Because stuff gets hard and we question, not understanding why you are doing certain things that you're doing and why you're not doing certain things that you're not doing. Because if I had all your power, I know I would be running things so differently and everything would be all messed up.
Oh, yeah.
But I know I would, and it's like, and Lord, to just be able to say, I think all of us, Lord, as we thank you that as we are maturing as your people, Lord, I think that we're getting better and better at trusting you on more and more things. I think, Lord, sometimes it's just like really big things that come out, and we're like, you gotta do something different on that one. Like you gotta, and you don't gotta do nothing.
Right.
And Lord, for us to be able to accept that, I believe, Lord, that it'll help us to be more of what you would have us to be even in these last days, Lord, that as you want to operate through us for whatever reason, you don't need a body. You can say to whatever you want to say, to whatever you want to happen can happen because of the word of your mouth. You've displayed that over and over again. But for whatever reason, there's so many things that you want to accomplish in the world through a body. And so in order for us to be that and to play that role and to subjugate ourselves to you and yield ourselves to you as being the head over the body, to do what you want done, we have to get really good at trusting you 100% and getting really good at releasing any and all offense when you don't make sense to us and just saying, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And not just only just saying yes, sir, but with there being true and real trust behind that. Yes, sir doesn't make any sense to me, but I know, I am sure that this is right. I'm sure that this is the best thing to be happening. I'm sure this is the right thing to be done, even though it makes zero sense to me. Lord, I pray that you help us with that. Help us to keep growing in that kind of grace. It's a work in progress. I know sometimes, Lord, we get frustrated, almost feel like we want to take the ring off. But Lord, we won't. We're kept by you. Your word says in 1 Peter, by the power of God unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last day. You keep us. And so, Lord, I thank you for that. I pray, Lord, that you help us to continue to bless and uplift one another as we seek your face. Help us to be the kind of people you want us to be. We are in a option B relationship with you. And we love you. In Jesus' name. Amen.
That was good. That's very good. Sometimes freestyle.
What's that?
Sometimes that some under the excavation is freestyle.